Welcome to the March app. Good to see you online. I think we're just missing Jonathan Fitch today, which is okay. But before we get started, this meeting is being recorded. We only have one item today, which is lot 44 and 4702 West Virginia Avenue. A little bit of context on this one. This is over in the Eastern Greenway portion of Bethesda. And this has been sort of the topic of conversation for the past couple of visits with lot 25, which is the county parking lot to the north. Lot 44 is also a county parking lot. And the adjacent property for 4702 West Virginia Avenue had a previous approval with the DAP for a lower scale project. Lot 44 is a county parking lot. The applicant is under a general development agreement with the county to redevelop both parking lots, but they will be coming in under separate applications. So this one is solely for lot 44 and 4702 West Virginia Avenue. The applicants came to the DAP back in November with a concept plan for the project. And the intent is to be submitting as a speed to market. And what a speed to market project is essentially it compresses the reviews for the sketch plan and the site plan. So while we did review the concept plan in the conversations for the DAP today, and if more meetings are necessary, even though it's sketch and site combined, we're looking at that final level of detail. And, you know, at the conclusion of however meetings are necessary, they'll be looking for their final vote on design excellence points. So it's really having an all-in-one discussion here. And so we did send out the memo. There were a couple comments at the November meeting in regards to the lower townhouse massing and the upper story building and how they seemed out of relationship compatibility. And so in the resubmission, we found the tweaks that were made really helped communicate the townhouse to the upper tower. And then in general, I think in the memo, we just noted that while many improvements were made, that we still think there's a level of detail necessary to get through this site plan review process. And so we noted those, but with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the applicant for presentation.
I was just Jeremy before, Matt Gordon from Selzer Gerbich. So some of the stuff in the DAP in our initial submission or the submission a couple of weeks ago, inadvertently, we didn't have some of the landscape plans that Trini and her team were working on. So we've supplemented it. And they've got a lot of balls in the air right now. They're trying to get the applications are in for intake review. So we have advanced the design a lot. So I think what you'll see today is it's evolved since the submission a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to say, we have evolved the submission a little bit, the facades and the landscape plan and renderings have all been updated and evolved slightly. So we'll have something different.
What's on the screen is different than what's in our application, what was submitted.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference here is
mods. Okay, got it.
It's a color elevation. So just to put these two in context and for Bob's context, the lot 25 development is to the north on a surface parking lot that he saw. Were we here last month or 2 months ago? Two. And lot 44 is on the south here with 8001 in between. This is West Virginia Avenue that lot 44 fronts upon. Tilbury Street that the Greenway fronts upon. Benihana, just to orient you on the site, the Chase Bank building on the block, and the resident who didn't want to sell their house on this corner.
Thank you.
I don't know, do you need to walk through the public benefits again?
Just at a high level so that there's 3 joint venture parties that are all working together.
Okay.
And on lot 25, they're going to replace the public parking spaces from both lots. And then both projects would have an additional affordable housing component. And then they're both dedicating park space to the county and for making the improvements. And they've been working with Henry Coppola and Parks Department for, 6 months or so now to work on the design there.
And for lot 44, the premise on the height is that you're getting an exclusion of the 4 levels of above grade parking. That's why it's taller than it would otherwise be.
Correct.
For those 4 levels of parking.
It's related to the greenway.
Yeah.
Well, it's part of the fact that it's a public.
Yeah, it's the public facility.
Public facility.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's 4 stories over what would otherwise be allowed by planning currently.
Correct.
Okay.
It's similar to like what on your car project, that same concept
Yes.
is that it precludes us from going below grade.
Well, what precludes you, just like you said, what precludes you?
But dedicate it to Parks Department and then the design, if we encumber that whole below grade part of the park, it makes it very complicated to dedicate the way the county wants it.
If you were to build under the.
Yeah, and so
But
then
you
we,
guys aren't doing anything.
we have a one level, but it's,
Yeah,
level.
but only, yeah.
The footprint of the building,
It's a small-
Exactly.
which
So
is
the
great.
argument was, the argument was to build a good efficient parking arrangement, park, we can't go into the park.
Yeah.
Therefore, we're coming.
yes.
the park will benefit by it.
Yeah.
So just putting lot 44 again in the context of all of Bethesda, this view is from the northeast. I mean, we've shown this view multiple times now to the tap for different projects. The Eastern Greenway as planned along this side, and then of course the greater downtown Bethesda area here. Just context views. This view on the upper left looks looks east on West Virginia Avenue, with Benihana on the right, the massing approximate. In this location, you can see here the entrance to the alley that forms the west border of our site. On upper right is the view from Tilbury Street and Chase Avenue, which is the southeast corner of the Chase Avenue Urban Park, or the southeast corner of the block, looking northwest. Heavily tree building appearing over the tree line.
What is the building and construction on the upper right? With the crane?
That is the JBG project that's now complete.
Oh.
This is
A few years ago.
Google
Okay,
Street View
right.
from old
Okay.
view.
Tree.
Yeah, this building, actually. So
Hmm.
they've updated Street View on Wisconsin, but not the side streets. This view on the lower left is from the north looking south, seeing Benihana. Again, the proposed building, its prominence, at least in a temporary state until the Benihana site gets redeveloped, quite prominent on Wisconsin Avenue. And then the view in the lower right from West Virginia Avenue, looking west, seeing our holdout house. To the right is the block of the future 8001 Wisconsin development. And in this foreground would be the future 70-foot wide greenway that site is proposing and building here. In the context of the Bethesda master plan and the greenway plan, we are again jogging the greenway, if you will, around this home and connecting it to the Chase Avenue Park. I'll let Trini take over here.
Yeah.
Talk about the next slides.
Right. So just briefly, I won't go into a lot of detail on this because we've already done this several times, but the master plan envisioned this idea of creating a greenway, series of linear parks with a couple of nodes and linking some of the existing parks. The nature of those parks were sort of neighborhood serving, sort of appropriate scale, with some level of activity, but really, as we talked about, as you can see there, it's really mostly to serve the neighborhood. So designed with flexibility so it can be used, by the community at large. And it's probably one of its biggest purposes to provide that connectivity and that sort of fluid movement through a series of parks all the way down into the downtown. And of course, the plan, envisions that even moving south. I think one of the things that this particular law does is that it enables the vision of that continuous greenway. And, unfortunately, that house did not sell, but, hopefully in the future that could become part of that park. So the setup is one where providing for that connectivity a very sort of smooth way of connecting all of these parks and moving through, allowing for future expansion if that were to happen. But especially in this particular lot, what's important is it provides that connection. It's activated by these townhouses, which you'll see entrances to the townhouses, which you'll see in the future, and then terminates into the Chase Park, which was envisioned by the parks to actually be renovated. So it's really a good time to have these things come online as they are. And then, of course, to the north, which you saw on the lot 25, it's, that sort of terminus to that greenway, which has sort of a larger green and a little bit more open. So what we're showing there is a series of notes. Just, briefly, we have, those are, in the small blue. We have met with parks several times, and lately, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, with the designer that will be involved in the park, not just sort of the upper level. And we walked her through all of the details of the plan, grading and some of the constraints, because we obviously have stormwater and all that. We'll show you that. And basically,
I'm sorry, there's a separate firm designing the public park. You guys are not the landscape architect for the.
which one?
The one you just talked
He means
about.
Parks Department.
The Parks Department
He's gonna design that.
is going to design that. Yeah. Yeah.
So you're designing it, but that's what the county.
Oh, yeah. No, so we're designing the greenway
Got
for
it.
sure. And we met, thank you.
And you're designing the corner
We
park?
met with the
No.
project manager that is sort of, from their side, sort of looking at the more details. I mean, they've been looking at the big vision and the big picture, and those were the first meetings. These last few meetings have been more technical in nature, sort of looking at rates, where access are. I mean, basically, we'll, as we move through, some of the things that came out of the conversation is, can we make this movement a little bit more fluid? Can we add a little bit more of a seating here? What type of seating, what type of furniture, what type of planting, because who's going to maintain it is still an issue. So all of those conversations that were a little bit more detailed than the first ones have already taken place. So next. So that's the vision for this, is this idea of sort of having places for people to sit. The promenade is the biggest component of it. And maybe some sort of play elements that are really mostly going to take place up at the north, and obviously within the Chase Park. So that's, all the play components will be the terminus at the Chase Avenue Park. So that's kind of once you merge together the plans that Jeremy's team have been working on with the greenway. You can see here sort of an overall view of the existing conditions of Bethesda, how they sort of been inserted, how it ties to the Chase Avenue Park. We've been talking to the county to create a mid-block connection that we're, hoping that it can be more like a tabletop. And ultimately, if we can work with them, make sure that becomes sort of like a space that you kind of, if the other lot became a park, it would be sort of a road through the park instead of the park through the road.
How's that going?
Well, we're still talking.
So I'm curious. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So I'm just curious. So there's all these potentially disparate green spaces along the greenway, and Montgomery County is curator of all of them. Is that the idea? They're the ones who's directing the vision to make sure that this is a really nice, compelling, linked series of.
Actually, the planning department did the vision
Yeah.
as part of the master plan, and the parks department has been an intimate player in all of the sort of guiding.
Because you're just doing these two, somebody else is going to do the other.
Right, but I mean, luckily, we are also doing the in the middle.
In the,
This 3-block strips of the Parks Department will kind of have the overall view. It's been great. Feel
Yeah,
very
yeah.
lucky that Kenny and Burke Rodriguez are on
On
all
both,
3 of
yes.
these blocks.
All
Well, and
three.
no-
Oh, so you're on the other one too?
Right,
Okay,
but
so
it's coming at a different time, but the vision, I mean, it's a good question,
Yeah,
because that's a
to me,
challenge. I mean, the good thing is that the way that they've been planned, even if they're individual, they really are strong contributors to bringing
You
green.
want a narrative that weaves it all together.
Right, exactly. And that's what we did.
There's a parks framework concept that was brought forward with 8,000 Moms Wisconsin a couple of years ago. So there is something in place that thinks about this greenway and sets up
Right.
some sort of consistency. That
Right.
is,
Vision is kind of, it's really subject to how much width you have for each development that comes in.
Yeah.
So it's not all gonna be the same. And I think that's why the vision is gonna be a little flexible, but the intent is that it really does provide that linear arc.
And then it has, and this idea that it's somewhat, sorry to over reference the Highline again, but the beauty of it is that there is some consistency.
Right.
Right, that's the
It's a
biggest
larger
thread, is that
story.
continuity. And actually, I don't know that we have this picture here, but our initial sort of driver for this, an idea, sort of our concept was this idea of braided streams,
Yeah.
like they come in and they separate and they come in. I
So
don't
it's
know that was
passage
how
and
that, it
respite.
used to be.
Passage. Yeah.
Anyways, yeah.
Okay.
And there'd be sort of notes of activity, but the fact is that even if they came sort of more disjointed initially, they're really a great asset for this neighborhood because it really helps to knit the downtown and the more urban with the residential neighborhoods,
Right.
which, in the past, they've been like, this great division between the two. The idea is the park is going to be that glue that brings them together, both the.
So Trini, I would show your 8,001 ghosted in there just to have the overall picture.
Yeah, we
If you
could.
haven't
The
started.
reason, no. The reason is the owner
Yeah.
is actually very sensitive about what's shown for
I
the
see.
project if it's still
Early.
early.
Got it.
And
Okay.
they are very protective of that because it can evolve and they don't want to be
Got it.
tied to it.
And I would add one thing, speaking to the concept of the greenway serving as this buffer and an appropriate transition from commercial down to the residential neighborhood. It's why we thought that design where we scale down to townhouse really fits in well with that.
I agree.
And the neighbors actually have been super active on this. I mean, and ownership has been meeting with them. All of the projects here have been meeting with the neighbors of this community.
For years.
For years. They've been involved to the point that they're, almost on a spill dial.
Family.
They
They're
call,
they're partners. with
they're
the
partners.
parks.
They really,
Yes.
excellent.
Hopefully they're
Yeah, they are.
They're great.
Yeah, they're,
Thank you.
They've
Didn't
come
mean
to the
interrupt.
public meetings. They've been very
Yeah.
helpful.
They're my friends.
and they're very eager to see this,
Yeah.
coming
Yeah.
online. So, let's see, just quickly, that's, so you can see here some of the things, this will be a sort of a quilt of green on how we meet the 35% green cover, but you can see the change in scale. I mean, the architecture, Jeremy will go through that, but it's really well articulated and kind of stepping down in scale. Of the park, we have the entrances to the units, which we think will help to activate it and have eyes on the park because it is really more of a muse in this condition. We have sort of a spin-off of the major trail with some seating notes, and that's what we sort of discuss in more detail. That's how we activate them. They're, different variety of seating, a picnic table, and how do we, the planting strategy here has been done, one, to meet the guidelines of the master plan with all the trees that have been, discussed, but also create a layering with the understanding that obviously it does have to be maintained. So that I think is still probably up to discussions as to who will ultimately maintain this. I don't know. That has been.
That's not
It's not.
at this point.
Well, I mean, so this is gonna be a public park.
Right.
Every park, I think, you do sometimes have some flexibility in some of the landscape maintenance.
Yeah. Yes.
If there's a level to which parks can maintain it, and if there's a desire to have something slightly different.
Yeah.
Create arrangements.
Right, and we've been very sensitive to that. So we have all these layers, but trying to make sure that it is maintainable and that is safe, especially. So,
Good.
Yeah. Next. Just, you know, a little bit more detail. I won't go into that, but that's sort of, we started already at that level. We do have to address stormwater. So you can see there is a bioretention pond on the upper right-hand corner. We're also putting a new fence along this neighboring property because that fence is actually in pretty bad shape. So,
Yep. Decrepit.
yeah. And I believe that's our last slide. Oh, and here kind of the idea of sort of the street furniture, lighting, the planting palette, which will have sort of seasonal interest. That's it.
What width is your sidewalk, your hardscape there? To my
So,
eyes, to you're the
sorry.
expert,
Yes,
It looks a little
thank
wide.
you.
Big.
So
It's big
the promenade is 10 feet. This is something that,
for trucks for maintenance trucks.
When it's part of our 10-foot wide promenade, a central aspect of.
Yeah. This has been a matter of discussion. We were, we were advocating a little smaller, but
It's probably those landscape trucks.
initially used to be 20 feet, believe it or not.
10's way better than 20.
Oh.
That was,
Did you have the same reaction?
I didn't have that level of detail. That's the first you've seen that.
so, I think we settled on 10.
So my first reaction is
My thought was 8 was better, but,
8 is a little bit wider, if you will. Does this allow bicycles? Because I can guarantee you.
It will now with that.
You're
it
gonna-
will. That's why we were advocating 8. I know, Henry, I should let you speak, but in their vision, they were hoping to be more like a very, very strong promenade that goes from the north all the way south.
Yeah.
And they wanted it to read more as a promenade, but we were saying 8 feet because that's the trail at the, George Washington and the Capitol Crescent incursions. Now that one gets very busy, and I think 8 feet
Yes.
is too narrow there. I think 8 feet would be
Yeah. I agree, it's a
sufficient
little
here,
wide.
but
That's a.
So here's the downside of it being too narrow. Like everything on the left and right of it is all torn up. It's a mess all the time, right?
Yeah.
It actually becomes hazardous.
right.
So
But that
you're
has
better off having,
bicycles
I think,
and
10 long-term maintenance.
has commuters.
I think if you're a biker, and I bike a lot, I would never take this if I had to go up and down curbs and all that. I'd be in the street.
Right.
Well, the street is designed to be a shared street, so it's
Yeah,
already
Tilbury is-
planned for that.
Right.
Tilbury is low traffic and it's got sharrows, and I don't think a dedicated bike lane will be a shared street.
It's a shared, yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty quiet.
That was the first thing I noticed.
Yeah. I agree, but I think I've been outvoted.
Okay.
There you can do your ceiling tile calculation.
Yeah, I did it.
I know.
It is wide.
We're all looking up
It's a lane. It's a car lane.
It's a car lane. That's why
Street.
Yeah.
I thought for this, it would be better. I'm gonna say one more time. I think 8 feet would be
Well,
great,
you're-
Henry. Think about it, because I think it'll make it green, a lot more green and feel more park-like,
Yeah.
but
It's gonna be one material with scoring it look like, right? It's not
Yeah.
gonna be like,
yeah,
because that too will help the maintenance long-term just to keep. it-
Correct. yeah. Yeah, and at this point, it's not asphalt, it's concrete. It's intended to be a little bit more,
Does that
No.
be impervious or pervious or?
it's impervious.
Just to be aware of the time, the greenway is gonna be solved with parks and
Okay.
want to focus on the design of the building.
Yes. Yeah. This is it.
Point's taken.
So we're not gonna, I'm not the person who's gonna make any moves on any of it right now.
Yeah.
But it's all stuff we'll take back.
Yeah.
Trinity's work with our landscape architects. And ours. But to Grace's point, I know there's other.
Jeremy, one-
guys.
Yeah, let's move on.
One more thing about the townhouse, something in the reports that the townhouses had been reviewed.
So
Is that
at,
these townhouses?
yeah, well, okay, so at the concept drawing, they did have they had a similar massing of like the lower townhouse style and then the building above. But
Right.
I think maybe we're referring to 4702 West Virginia Ave. When they were approved, they had a townhouse style look to them. And it was 35 feet in height. So this is sort of something that's been maintained more or less with this
Oh,
design.
And they
Previous
didn't.
proposal.
Yeah.
that's no longer
An approved site plan from years ago.
Now they have a parking lot.
So I just getting into the building, I just wanted to walk through quickly the massing diagrams in the Eastern Greenway to both introduce and refresh. We're providing a 43'6" greenway width. Now we've actually pinched the right of way. I can talk about that later, but the allowable height is 70 feet. As we, a change to this presentation from the last DAP is we went from a 3-story garage to a 4-story garage, which increased the height of that garage to approximately 43 feet. And by gaining the 70-foot measurement, we're at 113, maybe 114 feet for our overall building height now. We've continued to carve the mass up, though, beyond that with balconies and setbacks that I think add some variety to the project and improve it quite a bit as we walk through the massing. I'll move ahead to that quickly. Just a height exhibit talking about how we've taken the increased height and what the section at the entrance door lobby on West Virginia. So since the last DAP meeting, we've made, I think, quite a few improvements to the ground plane. One of the things we had was we had a loading dock in this corner next to the alley. That has been, that has moved to be a loading area on the sidewalk. There's no loading in the building now. We are still considering taking trash out the alley through double doors and then loading it into trucks at the alley entrance, but no longer.
Trucks are backing in.
Can I ask a question about, what is that alley about? Because is it public right of way? It's not the applicant's land.
It's a public right of way. It's in use. I mean, it's seldom used, but it is a public
It's public.
right.
So there's a 10-foot dimension off the face of the building.
Yes.
And that's good. If you serve it, right now, your plant has all your trash coming out of that building on that side of the building. And that will always be there for the function of this building.
Yes.
Correct.
But you're not assuming trucks are gonna back in there?
No.
Okay.
Trucks will be probably in West Virginia.
Yeah, and trash get rolled out through the alley.
So can the functionality I'm trying to sort out a little bit, because I'm not satisfied that it's the best yet. But if you go to the next, like right there, see the loading area? When you load the building, your elevators, your 2 elevators, you have to come through the parking garage, or you come through the corridor, and then across the parking garage, drive out into the building. So if I'm a resident, these are for sale condos, right?
Yes.
It's not gonna be
Oh, these
as
are
much
condos?
it's not gonna be as much turnover,
Very little turnover.
right?
Okay.
That's gonna be the
That
path
makes-
where I'm bringing my $25,000 grand piano. Has to be outside, cross that way into the lobby and then in. That's the servicing.
We would have like that loading area. It obviously would have been better further west, but with DOT, there were issues with site distance and things. So it's really the only place it could go for reasons like that.
Yeah, we weren't allowed to place it here in front of the.
Right.
Wow.
They had 2 curb cuts, Robert, for the issue. Last time we got rid of the 1 curb cut by
Yes.
putting the loading on the side loading.
Okay,
But now it's uncovered loading.
but it is a curb cut still.
It's a curb cut. Well, it's.
Alley
Well,
is
it's just a-
curb cut.
No,
No,
Not that-
it's just
Not a curb
a,
cut?
it's just a lay-by.
yeah, it's a lay-by.
Lay-by, right.
We eliminated one of the curb cuts relative to the previous concept.
The previous
Right, but
one
off of,
had
just to
a-
be clear, Trinity, if there's a curb cut to the alley,
Yes, exists.
curb cut to the parking,
Correct.
okay, and then there's a lay-by.
Lay-by.
Got it.
Which is not a curb cut.
Just not really a curb cut. It's
No.
No.
Previously, there were 3,
There was 3, right?
now
Yes,
there's 2.
there were 3.
The
3, including the alley.
Oh, wow, you had another one there.
Yeah.
This is better than that.
Yeah,
And the-
it's a big
The
improvement.
lobby was in the middle of the 2 curb cuts. So this
Right.
is a much more
And
better solution, I think, for the corner.
Jeremy, what is your name again? Sorry. Jeremy and
Jeremy, Jason.
Jason, did you guys ever consider just enlarging the alley a little bit to let the truck in? There's a trash truck in. so
We
it's-
studied
You
it.
studied
Yeah.
it?
There's no way if you did a 5-foot dedication, it still doesn't work. So, and that it's such a tight site that it
So who
wasn't
owns
viable.
the alley land?
It's county.
Public.
County.
Public
So
land.
there's another mirror 20 feet next to it?
No, that's 10. The whole thing is 10.
So
The thing is-
so the next owner technically could build up to that red line and
Yes,
have a
correct,
10-foot
yeah.
alley through there. It's gonna be, excuse the expression, a shit show in the future, from an
Yeah.
operational standpoint.
If you look though, the thing is, in order for us to,
Sometimes we
Rich,
have
don't
this
put that word in
situation
there.
in
all right?
Spotty, sometimes
Oh,
each half gives a little bit, and you get a 20 or 15-foot
thought was-
alley.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the challenge is there's no near-term plans for that Benihana. I mean, it's owned
Well-
by 20 family members or something, and
Yeah.
I think it does very well.
Yeah.
So we don't, it could
We've
be
tried.
50 years before it redevelops, so we can't
Well, if you
design to
go
some,
first, it's gonna be on them.
yeah, but they.
They may
not ever
actually-
redevelop.
But they may actually want to use that 10 feet and
Yeah.
enlarge it to
They'll
serve
probably
their
enlarge it. You
building.
know,
I
they
mean,
probably will.
But it's
And you-
their issue, not
is
yours.
there issue?
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
It's-
But you,
It's functionally enlarged by them now and
Uh-huh.
used by them
Uh,
for their trash.
Yeah.
They,
it is-
So loading the condominiums is gonna be a challenge, but it's a one-day challenge.
Yeah,
Right?
it's
It's
a-
not, I don't know how you get around
it's,
it.
I mean, if you think about it,
Yeah.
with less than 60 total units for sale, I mean, if you think annually
No, I
that,
think that's not an issue. That's gonna go
It's-
away.
yeah, I
The
agree.
issue- The issue is the daily trash and the inevitable UPS and FedEx, which you've handled with this.
With the loading,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's the best we could
The other,
solve for.
the other thing that Trini, that they worked on is that they moved the curb out, I guess, to the east of the loading area, so they can create a sidewalk that the applicant will build off-site along that neighboring property to connect to Tilbury. There's no sidewalk there today.
Wait, sorry, where?
on the,
Yellow.
on the right-hand
Oh,
side.
So that's
Yeah.
not our,
Here.
we committed to doing, the only way they can do that is by moving the existing curb out. So they're gonna narrow down the travel lanes, which I think
I see.
will get DOT comfortable with the idea of this mid-block elevated
Yeah.
crossing
Right.
because of that.
Yeah, and we're getting some really nice sidewalks and tree planting areas. I mean,
How deep
super
is- How deep
nice.
is the loading lay-by? Deep, Jeremy, is that from? the-
It's like,
estimate.
It looks really
no,
deep.
10 feet.
It
It's,
looks really deep.
yeah,
is
it is like 10 feet.
10 feet?
Only 10, looks more than 10.
That's what
It could
DOT.
be-
It's actually,
What is that? Yeah.
We've worked with them
Pat,
for about a
was that-
month.
it's
that.
trying to come in here with my camera, but it doesn't seem to be working. It's 11 and a half feet wide, and it was done that way for sight distance reasons.
Ribbon small.
Okay.
It was done.
Did you guys hear that?
Side distance
Say
reasons.
again,
He
sorry?
said 11 and a half, and it was done that way for sight distance reasons.
Okay.
I think
DOT
it's-
updated their standard like 6 months ago, and it has become very challenging
Yeah.
for any on-street parking, or you almost can't meet the standard.
It's a very suburban standard. So again, that made this a challenge. It really made that the only place we could put it.
It'll be easy to get in, head in now.
Yeah, it just looks like a big dimple on the sidewalk. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
It
think
does.
the idea is that every other building on this block for their Ubers or Lyfts or their FedEx, Amazon, this will serve them because it's not for
Yeah.
this project. It just happens to serve those limited move-in.
Oh, this is not just yours?
No, it's for any
a
use.
public-
Yeah.
It's a public loading area.
It'll
I see.
be public, yeah.
Okay.
The other improvement we had, which was on the concept plan, which the DAP didn't see, I think, officially, but on the concept plan, we had shown in this corner, instead of the loading dock, we had transformer vaults shown. We've since worked with our dry utility consultant, and the owner has made a commitment. We're gonna work on doing dry type transformers in a basement room. And we'll have to figure out some access to that off the alley and give Pepco all of its requirements, but that frees up the frontage.
Low grade and air conditioned kind of deal.
Doesn't have to be air conditioned.
So it's vented in the sidewalks.
It's
Yeah.
vented.
Is it
but-
on your site or is it off your site?
No, it's
It's
in, it's inside the
Building.
Oh,
building,
it's in.
Basement, yeah.
Oh,
In the garage, at the garage level.
at the garage level. So we have to provide a pathway, like a
Yeah.
6-foot path for them to take the equipment out, and they have to have their own entrance, which is sort of what this
So you need like a
there
knock
is. You know, Pepco's gonna have a key and have their access. We may have to make another door for them off the alley, but
Well, that's a really good solution. I mean, thank you
Yeah,
for
it's
looking
better
at
than-
that,
better
better
than-
than where
yeah.
we were.
Yeah, the architecture's much improved because of.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a tight site.
Um, And then the other thing, as we work our way up, so that gave us, more liner units on the second, third, and fourth floor by freeing up that transformer vault. And then on the fifth floor, John, we've
Oh,
made
yeah.
some great efforts here to
That was my contribution.
Yeah.
to daylight the amenity space. Interestingly enough, the setbacks we've done and the redesign of the units allowed the amenity space to be a little bit smaller than what we had before, and we've done some work on the townhome penthouses. One of the advantages actually we went from a 3.5-story townhome to basically a 4-story townhome with a doghouse
Right.
on the roof. So that freed up the space that as we arranged the townhomes, we could open up some light into that amenity
I'm
space.
sure your client is really happy with this direction.
Yeah, we are happy, yeah.
So,
Well, and lift in the garage helped also. I mean,
Yeah.
all of
It's a
it.
big improvement.
No,
Yeah.
you
raised
see,
up
Good study.
all the,
yeah,
Did you lift the height, the overall height when you lifted the garage or
Yes.
just kept
Yes.
the height?
Yes, overall, I came up.
it was all.
overall height. So,
Yeah.
Now while the amenity space doesn't have an outdoor space, which it may if we do a concrete building, if the townhomes are wood frame, we have to you
Yeah,
can't
keep that separation.
keep that separation. So
That all holds together nicely. I mean, it really
Yeah,
does a great job.
definitely.
on the first floor, the other piece of news is our fire review, because the townhomes are not fronting on a street and are not providing.
Is there garage below those townhomes?
No,
So those,
They're not pretty simple though, because they're
No.
connected. So,
No.
okay, all right.
so the owners of those will park in
Condo, yeah.
that garage.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple openings on the ground level.
Good.
Yeah, you can.
yeah, I'm using the word townhome
No, I get
in
it.
a
That's fine.
style,
Yeah,
Yeah.
not in a by building code.
Can I ask a dumb question about the townhomes though, and the trash? You take the trash out into the driveway to get to the trash room for the townhouse. Is that code reason why you have to
Well,
do
couldn't
it?
they come across the garage, John? They
For the
could go through
townhomes.
garage. They could use that.
Have their
back-
Oh, they're using that door.
They had
Just gave
trash,
we
yeah.
just gave them a dedicated room.
I
So
got
they
you, I
didn't
got
have to
you.
cross the garage.
I got you, okay.
We haven't worked all this out
Do
and,
they have elevators?
Yes.
yeah, internal.
And
Yeah,
it's
sure.
small, I mean, it's only a few units, so.
So the fire reviewer asked for a connection to,
Each one of the
Either-
units.
they want either we're back to a 20-foot sidewalk to bring a fire truck down. the
We would have
greenway,
had to have a
Or-
20-foot drive access to,
Or we
Yeah.
provide this side door and a back corridor on the first floor to
So
access
you're
all the
building the
different-
townhomes out of wood,
Yes.
and that's the issue.
Fire marshal.
Even though you have a.
But
concrete
not-
guys
not
working
really.
hard on site, it doesn't just make sense to build that out of concrete.
We'll take a look at that.
You should,
Yeah. I mean,
you know.
what's frustrating about it, right, is that from the fire review standpoint, because they're wood and a separate building from their perspective, they need to be able to get within 50 feet of the front door. Without that common entrance, they're like,
Right.
we don't have the street front, yeah.
And they're
It
for
might
sale
just- it might
townhomes,
just
not
be
rental.
looking at
Sale,
you know, sake.
Yeah, I mean, that
could,
may
we
very
could.
well make sense. We just wanted to preserve the
Sure,
flexibility,
sure,
yeah.
yeah.
So you can see in section what we're
So
providing.
Give them an extra foot of height.
Yeah.
Each one, each floor.
That's
We know.
the floor
That's
to,
a lot.
yeah, the floor to ceiling assembly, obviously, yeah.
So I just wanted to run through our plan. So this is our typical plan. We're still working on unit demising walls, how we divide it up, but essentially the architecture now allows for balconies on all 4 sides. We really emphasize the views to the east because of the view over the townhomes and the greenway. The adjacent developments to the west and south someday limit the potential views, although they're probably the best views
Currently.
the day they open currently.
So, yeah. There's a
So-
whole other discussion. about
Yeah.
that.
Right. Well, and from the outset,
Hedging on your layouts in terms of the potential.
well, Well, from from the outset, for obvious reasons, the idea, the concept here was that we wanted to minimize the number of units that have their primary frontages facing west or south. And so that's, you can kind of tell when you look at this, the way the units are designed. You know, for instance, if you look at that southeast corner unit, yes, it's got you know, a lot of south facing frontage, but the primary frontage is east facing, and you can see the same theme as you go around.
So we've developed the top penthouse level to have an amenity space. We're gonna have private pop-ups for some of these rooftop, or from some of the top floor units with their own terraces, and also providing a large terrace that would be open to the entire resident population. So getting back into the elevations, I think we had a lot of comments about in the last DAP meeting about the continuity of the architecture between the tower and the townhome. I think we've accomplished that more successfully here. We've the materials we're proposing are a white masonry, especially at the townhome level. Give the crispness there and have that masonry be continuous across both the townhomes and into the tower. We've sort of studied the townhomes as a design. They're sort of built in a piano nobile plan that the second floor is the main living area. The downstairs floor is a bedroom with primary bedroom on the third floor or fourth floor, and secondary bedrooms on that floor with, again, I call it a doghouse, but it'll just be the stairs, elevator, maybe a powder room or
Just
something.
access really to the
Yeah.
roof terrace.
Try to minimize that mass and
Yeah.
give the most.
There's
roof
nothing
terrace.
limiting you on that, right? You just want as big a terrace as you can. with
Yeah.
units.
Yeah. Mhm.
But there's no zoning issue with that.
No, it's just a
Fire,
marketability thing.
fire code wise,
Well, so the challenge there is the 125 feet to the,
Yeah.
so we,
yeah,
Yeah,
that is part of it, but, like, even without that, from a marketability standpoint, the amount of outdoor space, obvious, I mean, their outdoor space is limited to that roof terrace. So we wanted to maximize
is that why there's blank walls next to it, fire issue? On that level, you're separating still up there, is that why you're, another thing you wouldn't have if you
Yeah.
didn't use wood. That top floor, are you trying to separate those from the building as well, is that why there's blank walls next to the,
where, oh, like
right
here?
there, like all,
Oh, yeah, what,
That's,
you fire coating all that wall?
well, yeah, we haven't thought about what we might do there. I
that
mean,
would have to be I mean, you don't have to rate that wall per se, but
No?
we just didn't want to have windows
it's a privacy thing really for the
looking
private,
out
yeah.
on someone's other terrace, you know,
But
it's,
you have units there, so they're facing.
they're
north and
facing south.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not facing that way. Yeah.
Working around the West Virginia facade, the fire entrance door is, you know, an understated entrance, because it's not really an entrance. It would not be the public way or way anyone would direct someone to enter their townhome. Walking around, we paid a lot of attention actually, and this is a great point of it. When we designed the building, we now have a 4-story garage, so you start thinking it's a 4-story plinth with the building on top of it. And when we looked at the proportions of it, we thought it was a little bit clunky
Yeah, no,
at
Yeah.
4 stories. So we
Better.
brought it down.
better.
Much
So
better.
we're playing, you know, some
Tricks.
optical tricks here to
Yeah.
bring
That's what architecture does.
the cornice down to the 3rd level, provide some grills and louvers along that facade. I mean, this is all alley facing.
Yeah.
But again, as we walk through the renderings, you will see that from Wisconsin in the temporary condition. This is the south side. Again, a little less visible from Wisconsin or other public ways, but
Well,
same.
Right, because the existing structures are a few stories. Right.
Yeah.
Right, but like when you think on Wisconsin, you know, you've got that Chase Bank building, it's 3 stories. Like if you think about the surrounding existing structures, I think in the existing condition, what's most visible obviously is the tower that sits atop the garage. But I think we've done a nice job of designing the garage to not look so much like a garage from the exterior.
This is the alley side.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you remind me how many units?
This is what, 57 as of now, or 58?
Spaces?
57.
57, yeah.
How many parking spaces?
It is currently 100 park or 98.
99.
99 parking spaces. And that's a marketability thing. These are all, you know, large for sale units. Almost all of these folks, the assumption is they'll have 2 cars. And so it's important that we have enough parking. I mean, if you run out of parking in a scenario like this, it can become a challenge with large, high price point units. If it's,
It sort of ties into we have to do 7 deeply affordable units that the county executive required. And we have to we have to reduce our condo assessments. So to make the
Wow.
project, the economics work,
Sure.
you have to sell the market rates. You know, I mean, so that's really the tension there.
Just to follow up with Paul, because I asked him about parking a second ago, and, you know, I think you are in a downtown, and you have a lot of public parking. Our board is hyper focused on parking. Be expected to have that discussion with the board and staff, mainly because of that, and they're looking for ways to reduce parking. That said, I like what you've done with the building. I think it's good, but they're going to be.
Hopefully the argument of the large units and condos, because the reality is I'm dealing with this in other jurisdictions, is that the expectation of a condo owner that comes to a big unit is that they're gonna, you know, usually have more than 2 cars, believe it or not.
Well, they're
Um,
gonna store them there while they're.
Yeah.
Florida.
it's exactly right.
Combination of things. There, you know, there's more people in these apartments, you know, there are 2 or 3 bedrooms. So, I mean, somehow the board is gonna have to be educated a little bit, because there is the large condo situation is a very different animal.
I agree with you.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just.
So I don't know. No, you're absolutely right, and I think
Ready.
everybody should know.
Ready to defend it.
Yeah, exactly.
Just another thing to point out, if this were instead an apartment building, obviously it would look different, but we're talking 140 units, all of a sudden the 99 parking spaces doesn't look like such a crazy ratio. So it's and doing the for sale is a reason it's kind of a key to the whole transaction with the county, is because of how much affordable for sale units were desired. And so we're trying to meet that. I mean, we set it up where in theory we have the ability to go with a rental, but we're really trying to adhere to delivering affordable for sale. Okay, sorry. No. Sorry.
5 minutes.
I mean, we hear your arguments.
Yeah.
Reality is that
No, we get it.
The planning board.
Getting the additional height, and the planning board has the discretion over that. So
Understood.
the parking is really related to something here. So that's just.
That's a 10-foot wide pathway there.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's really wide.
It's big. Not the garage.
Robert's on record. It's big.
It looks really
Yeah.
big.
And I didn't say anything. I didn't even.
But isn't the idea that it's continuous throughout? There's other blocks that it's 10 feet, so they keep.
Yeah, no, it's a
It'll
big,
be a
it's a big decision.
comfortable walk.
Yeah, but
It's a big decision.
8 feet would be a lot nicer, but let's see when it goes.
I don't disagree. 8 feet would be.
Well, my presentation's done, other than thumbing through a few renderings. Here's how we're dealing with our borrowed light into the amenity space. This is how we're
Sorry, what's the
Populated.
the amenities in between the
In
2?
between the,
Yeah.
yeah,
in
It's in
there.
there. There's a window in there?
yeah.
Yeah.
So glass.
What are you doing with those, the dog houses that you called them? As far as like materials?
I think we thought about either a siding. It wasn't maybe a metal panel. It
Yeah.
wasn't gonna be a
It should be
masonry.
different than,
It should be, well, you want them to kind of recess
yeah,
Yeah.
to not being able to be seen, basically.
Right.
So I don't know how
Well, they're set way back.
materials will
yeah.
play a part of
You're
that.
gonna see them from the ground.
No, no, I mean, look,
No.
they're set back, what,
Yeah.
20?
You won't, there's no
20
chance you'll see them, right?
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm predicting a little bit of trouble for you guys up there, but I'm not gonna go construction type issue.
I'm talking,
let's-
okay.
I just think the complication is gonna get separated.
It may
It's
get
very
to
strict.
concrete. It
Yeah.
may-
Yeah, look, it may very well end up
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
concrete.
It might serve you. 'Cause
Yeah.
all of you.
Yeah,
And the price, you know, price points on townhouses will be good.
Well, you have a concrete guy pouring 10 stories next.
Right.
yeah, right. Already there.
Economies of scale in your.
What's the question?
What's the material? on the height?
Masonry.
Oh, right now contemplated as masonry.
Brick masonry? Yeah,
Yeah, we're still kind of
I see.
talking through it somewhat. That's kind of,
Sorry, since it is a speed to market application, we would need some type of commitment from you guys on the materials.
Yeah.
Site plan, so
right.
whatever you feel comfortable suggesting as a material, we probably need to see that.
Okay.
And I think if we go to the previous rendering, we looked at this application before it got to the DAP. This elevation, we just wanted to flag for the DAP and make sure that you are comfortable with the piece of the side of the townhouses. Because this has a lot of, I mean, it looks great, but it has a lot of utilities and things that are buried within the architecture, like the entrance to the garage and then the fire door. And then as you get to the park, we thought you should probably have your eyes on that to make sure it has enough glazing, enough.
That was actually my only comment on the townhomes. Was didn't put a bay or a
Yeah,
corner anchor to that mass.
Hmm.
Townhomes,
Yeah.
they're kind of austere, but you know, it'd be nice to have
Yeah.
a corner on each side, I think.
We
Or a big-
studied a corner.
Yeah,
Um,
a bay window,
it didn't
or at least a
quite
big opening.
sing.
Didn't like it.
We could look at a bigger opening, I think, at the Piano Nobile, but I feel like at the ground level, the modest openings because of the
Yeah, it's just that that's. the
Nature of-
Level, that's where the public is,
Public.
and it's a little bit
Yeah.
Yeah.
austere, that's all.
I-
I mean, it's
Yeah.
not a deal breaker for me. That's all.
I actually like how. See, does that represent the base? Is that a granite base? Right?
Yes. Yeah, we were planning on a granite.
And there's a lot going on about the townhouses. So I like that juxtaposition.
Hey, this is Rod. I do have
Very
a comment.
important. About masonry detail,
Yeah.
What you do.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
an expensive thing to do, but it will be worth it, especially if it's all white brick, granite at the base. I remember the previous renderings, and I see that townhouses and the open mass, and they now speak the same language. It was very disjointed. before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's much better.
We put a lot of effort into
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, having said that, I do have one comment. Can you go to the north elevation, if you don't mind?
Sure.
So my comment is, first off, stepping back, and I did go back and look at your November submission, and you really made some great strides in making the two buildings much more compatible. It doesn't feel anymore like it was two different buildings built in two different eras by two different architects. But I also wonder about some tweaks in here, and maybe it's driven by the construction types of floor-to-floor heights. Could you make some additional refinements where, as an example, the cornice line for the taller building goes into the townhouses, or vice versa, the cornice line for the townhouses merges into the apartment building to make them feel more tied together instead of, what you have right now, or feels like almost two buildings built in the same era instead of a different era, but could they be tied together by some additional refinements?
It's a good question. We studied it. I think the scale of the two fans is a little bit different. And it created too much, I thought, of a, like, we were concerned about the wedding cake of this design. Of too many like lines and lines and lines and stacking it. And so we were trying to strategically break, you know, the horizontals as we worked around the building. And the fact that I'm searching around for views here because the townhomes are a little bit proud of where the facade of the parking garage is. So,
But they're in line with the tower.
yes, but they're in line with the main door part of the tower. And so we were trying to play with that layering a little bit in 3 dimensions so that we didn't have, you know, just again, this continuous line all the way around the building.
So Rod, I think another way to deal with it would be to have bigger hyphens between the two. So if you had a larger recess in plane between the townhouse building, and the main building, they'd be more comfortable together. Because right now they're sort of attached but not.
Yeah,
So if it was possible to push that intermediate, I guess it's where the door access way is.
yeah,
Push that plane back off the facade a little bit,
Yeah.
that might help you.
yeah, recess that a little
Recess
bit
that.
more. Yeah, yeah, I like that. That
Yeah,
makes
that's,
sense.
that's a way of getting around it. That,
Another
'cause
way of
Yeah.
getting around Rob's.
To define the two volumes, the
To,
different,
to,
Yeah.
because they're kind of touching and connected, they're so
Right.
close, looks like there's about
Yeah.
a 12-inch
Yeah,
recess
right,
there.
right,
If you had a bigger
right.
gap, I think they'd be more comfortable.
Yeah.
Frankly.
Yeah, I mean, the other
You
thing,
know,
Jeremy.
it's less,
sorry, go ahead, go ahead.
it's a less of a problem on the south side because you have to believe sometime in the future it'll get covered up by another building. But right now it just feels like an opportunity missed to either kind of differentiate the two from one from another or merge them together. I mean, your massing diagram in my mind, like when you showed it in November and you show it now, it seems to suggest there's a greater cohesion than what I see.
And I think this view kind of speaks to something else that's related is there's almost 2 cornices for the townhouses at the 3rd and the 4th floor, and maybe one of those could be downplayed. And the sills for the windows of the top level seem really tall, the headers, I'm sorry. So as you detail out things, if there's some refinements that can be made there, that could also speak to.
You know, so exhaust is for the 2 parts of the project, right? So for townhouses, you're probably going through facade, right? And so those headers gonna serve you probably as louvers or exhaust valve.
That's a good
And I'm
question. What are you doing?
Yeah, I'm assuming that you're going vertical.
Do you know?
Right?
I've not designed the exhaust.
No,
account.
no.
We would,
yeah.
well, we could group bathroom fans and take them to the roof. I don't think that would be a
You're
big
talking about the
issue.
townhouses.
In the
So
town.
the tower, you'll use the back.
Yeah, we'll use the balconies.
yeah.
They'll be
Yeah.
hidden that way. In the townhomes, bathroom fan could be grouped and exhaust to the roof, I think, or in a discrete place.
Yeah.
As we find them, there's not really a lot of discrete places for the middle townhomes.
Yeah, don't ruin.
And
that.
so it's,
Right.
it's really the laundry vent
Yeah.
that Montgomery County especially is.
You know, those condenser dryers are getting.
I've tried to talk every client into
I know,
that.
me too.
Only one bites.
Why is that, though, you think? I mean, is it price?
They are getting much better. I mean, for a condo, I don't know. It's a good idea.
It's a client, it's an education thing. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
apartment owners don't wanna deal with the quirks of it. And I think if you overload them, they don't work at all. So you,
Yeah,
I
No,
think-
they're much better now. They're better now. Actually, seriously, I'm not, I don't have stock.
No,
That's a fact, but they're.
I mean, Ian Hoffman puts them in everything.
Yeah.
Really?
Ian Hoffman puts them in everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
They're seriously,
War.
seriously, but in Europe, you cannot buy a conventional dryer in Europe.
Yeah.
Cannot purchase one if you want to. They've all got condenser.
Well, I'm open to being educated.
Me too.
It's going in the notes.
You're-
Yeah.
I mean, look, again, those are meaningful changes.
Oh,
to the-
that
to the
is
skin of the
the pain
building.
of every architect of those vents, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe you figured out a clever way.
Uh,
It's hard.
Yeah, it is.
And maybe the technology is
It's a work.
better, and you guys would feel good about investing in it.
I have one.
It's a
large-
one-time investment for you.
Could you zoom out to this view, this perspective, which is pretty nice. Does anybody else wish that there were either two of those
Yeah.
Belvederes or
We-
Yeah,
either do 2 or 0? I don't know.
it's
The asymmetry,
that's
it's the
how-
only
debated that.
asymmetrical thing in your whole project. But anyway,
Eh,
it's very
we-
romantic.
Oh.
isn't it? But
Huh.
But maybe material, that's why like, maybe.
Huh.
Material detail.
Yeah.
Like, how do you do that tower?
That's interesting.
We studied it.
I mean, it's
We,
counterintuitive because you'd actually want it on the tall side of things urbanistically, but I'm okay with them here because of the park. But I
yeah,
would do 2,
That was-
honestly, just for your design, given what Jeremy and his team put
gonna
together.
add another one here.
Yeah.
No,
No, no, on the park side. Make it symmetrical is what he's saying.
Is my suggestion, but do what you will, saying, right?
That was my first reaction.
Yeah, me too,
Yeah.
right away, right away. Yeah.
Why don't you like
It's
that?
funny, I've been looking at so
It's
many
just, it's-
Robert Stern buildings on parks in New York City and he's asymmetrical. But we love the asymmetry of it. I think.
I
Yeah,
like
but
the
it's-
asymmetry of
I
it.
But
think
it's
it
the
adds some
only-
In my
variety.
opinion.
It's the only asymmetrical thing on a very bilateral axial symmetric.
I actually, now that you bring it up, I agree.
Just saying.
I never even thought about it, but
You
I
can't afford
actually, I understand. I actually,
It's gonna be,
I mean, yeah,
Bird's eye
yeah, no,
yeah, yeah.
different.
Anyway, it's just,
It can be special.
it's special, yeah,
we also didn't want to overwhelm
The neighborhood. I know.
yeah, I mean, so there's a balance there.
I think if the
That's all.
top of it were lighter, you don't continue the masonry up, but make it a little bit of a lighter feature.
That would be nice
It
too.
might
That would
help,
definitely
and
distinct-
you'd
that'd be
you'd
nice.
have better
from the
views.
Well, because,
Yeah.
because the whole building wants to transition from
Yeah,
west to
yeah.
east, right?
Yeah, that's-
That you guys are going
Yeah,
out.
yeah, that's Steve from our office,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, Steve, that makes sense, actually.
Yeah.
You look at it.
Yeah. We'll talk
Good
about it.
suggestion
up to
from
the
Steve, but
Got to consider cost too, like you said.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it, yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know how you build that top in wood. Jeremy,
Oh, no, you wouldn't.
Okay.
That would have to be
that's gonna be
a
different.
metal detailing.
The top floor
The top
can't
floor,
be,
very.
can't be mason, no, this one,
This,
this one, the
Oh,
fourth
wait,
floor, I
this
don't see
one.
how you can build this in wood construction. So you're gonna have to do something different up there, but maybe I'm gonna. Go for it.
We have tricks.
Yeah.
We have some tricks in our city.
Bricks and steel.
that was it?
That was it.
Nice.
That's the end.
Sorry for taking so much time.
No, you guys
Yeah.
have thought it through in a
Yeah.
big way. It's really evolving.
Thank you.
I guess I'm glad I missed the first one. This is well done.
I must say, this one has been a little difficult to take notes because we've been
Yeah.
route, so thanks. I like a challenge. But I need to get a temperature of where the panel's at because this is sketch and site plan. Do we want to see this again at the greater level of detail? Answer some of the questions that came up today in terms of the massing,
I think
the
material.
detail
Materials.
I think that's all.
material.
But do we need to meet again for material? I mean, I think they've come to the planning board with material.
So this is the second meeting. It's years of discussion. The sketch and site plan combined, right?
Right.
You guys will not see this again
Right.
after this stage, so. You could ask for them to come back and talk about materials. Or there can be a handshake
Is
here
there-
about what the materials
Can
are.
they send around the materials and then we decide if we need to be together? Does that matter?
Well, I mean, I heard materials. I heard perhaps like a hyphen on the West Virginia Avenue frontage. And I think there was one
Is the
more.
hyphen, you mean between the townhomes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm saying, do that on both, treat the volume that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do it
Yeah.
throughout if you can, because it's just a corridor. They should be able to recess on both sides. That was my suggestion.
So what I'm hearing then is you guys perhaps feel comfortable to take a vote today. I want to make sure I hear Rod online also.
I'm here. Yeah, I'm here.
How many points are they looking for?
20? Rod, how do you feel about voting today? Or would you like to see the materials and hyphen
You know,
change?
I think it's important to see the materials, especially if it's a combined submission.
And actually, one more question. I know you guys show landscaping in your renderings. Did the landscape plan make it in the submittal as well? For the,
We updated it with this.
We need to,
It was inadvertently, it
to
should have
you.
been included, so.
Yeah.
sorry.
So that's also an important thing for, I think, to get sign off on the streetscaping and that piece of it, so.
we'll definitely send it to you, but yeah.
the only issue that we run into as staff is if we take the vote today, there's a lot for us to review or sort of take responsibility for during project review. We're okay doing that. I'm looking at Paul and Atul.
Mhm.
We could do that, but if you feel comfortable, but it sounds like Rod would want to see it again. We don't have Jonathan here to even speak for the landscaping, so I feel that's a little difficult.
It could be a virtual meeting. So,
We could do virtual.
Yeah.
just a quicker-
Yeah, we're hoping to be at the planning board in July, so we could probably, depending on Trini and Jeremy's, we could probably come in May. And that gives us enough time in advance of a hearing.
If that's your schedule, then that would accommodate.
And we could do a virtual meeting for
Yeah,
that, because I
yeah.
think,
I mean, this is a brick building. I don't know what you're gonna
I mean, if
With
it was
this
just
design.
sketch, we would go through.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, no, it's more than a sketch plan level.
yeah, we would be sending the graphics ahead of time, so we could just meet virtually and,
We can do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll save everybody.
because I think
That was-
it was pretty vetted today in terms of the big moves. The,
I mean, unless you want to see sample.
Not samples, but you'll have to call out the materials on the elevations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure, like those things they feel comfortable with that. And then we have marching orders too, because otherwise you might get into a state where you submit something and we are saying, no, that's not what we talked about.
Right.
Then let's avoid that. Let's do a virtual meeting, knock it out and.
That new house just east of
Tilbury.
Bethesda Chase High School. Don't
Oh.
use that white brick.
They're down in
There's
the
a
loop.
bunch of them.
No, the
Oh,
brand new.
oh,
right
oh,
next to the high
oh,
school.
that one.
Yeah.
Thank you. That white.
Thank you all.
It's probably by right.
Thanks, Rod.
It is.
Bye-bye, thank you.
But